Well, hello there, everyone. We're back out in the gardens. We've got a water today. It's been in the mid to high 90s for several days now, and we haven't had any rain to speak of. We got a little bit a couple days back, not much. So I thought I'd take you all along with me and show you just how we decide whether we need to water or not. And we're currently over here at the old compost pile bed where we have our potatoes and our okra. And right now it's in the sun. And let me show you what's happening right now. Now, as you can see on this okra plant, they're starting to wilt a little in this here sun. See it right there? See it all around on those plants. All the okra is starting to wilt. So that would appear that we need to water. And I would tend to agree with that. But what we're going to do is we're going to check for soil moisture. One way, you can use the old-fashioned way, your finger, and you just work down in the soil deep as your finger can go. And when I get it down to the bottom, I do feel moisture. But that's about 4 inches deep. Now these are young okra plants, and their roots will eventually go down 2 to 4 feet. Same with potatoes. But the top 4 to 5 inches of this bed is dry by the old finger test. But let's take a look at some new technology and see what it tells us. So what we have here is a moisture meter, light meter, and pH meter. You can get these off Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. But let's just see what it has to say about the moisture deep in this bed. We're going to take this moisture meter and we're going to drive it down about 4 inches. Okay, right there. And it's showing, if y'all can see it, that the soil is dry. So let's go down a little bit deeper. It came up a little bit, but it's still showing in the red that the soil is dry. Let's check another area. We'll go over here where we used our finger test and we'll stick it here and see what it has to say. It's still showing dry. Now when I stuck my finger in there, I could feel a little bit of moisture. And the meter shows there is a little. So we definitely need to water this bed today. And this is how I check my soil moisture. Now, for a long time, I used this. And as you can see, the finger method is not very accurate. So what we're going to do now that this here bed is in the shade, we're going to water this bed, let it soak in, and we'll come back and take a moisture reading at that time. Okay, we went ahead and watered this bed in while it was in the shade. And I really watered it in 10 minutes. But we don't want to check the soil moisture right now. What we want to do is let this soak on into the soil, soak in real deep, and we'll come back and check it in about an hour and see what the moisture meter says at that time. But while we're waiting, we'll go ahead and check some areas that I watered late yesterday evening, and we'll see what the moisture meter says about them now. So stay with me. Okay, y'all, we're over here at the old raised bed, and if you follow my videos, you'll know that about 6 days ago we totally redid this bed, added more soil, put extra timber on it to deepen it. And these plants have been in now 6 days. We've got 3 tomato plants, a basil, a dill, parsley, and we've got a English thyme and oregano. Now, most of it looks like it's doing pretty good. The tomato here looks to be wilting just a tad, as does this one right here in the bright sunshine now. So let's take the moisture meter and see what it tells us. So we're going to first stick it in about 6 inches. And you can see right there at a 6-inch depth, it's showing wet, nearly top of the scale. Let's drive it on down and see what it says. Okay, now we fully inserted the probes, and these probes are right at about 12 inches long. And you can see it's just up in the moist range, about 1 tick mark. So it's still saying it's moist, but it's on the dry side. But let's go over and check by this tomato plant that's wilting a little bit in the noonday sun. Okay, as you can see, this tomato plant's wilting a little bit. You see, leaves are sort of limp. So let's stick in the probe and see what that tells us. At first, we're going to go down 6 inches. Now it's saying it's really moist, off the chart. Let's go down about 6 inches. Now we've inserted it all the way to the base, 6 inches or deeper. And what it's showing us is we're right at the top of the dry, just to the beginning of moist. That's at a 12-inch depth. Now granted, this plant's only been in the ground 6 days, still suffering from transplant shock. And you'll have that. You'll have some plants that get over it faster than others. All the rest of the plants look fairly good. The basil's got a little bit of limp leaves going on. But I would say, based on the moisture meter, and knowing that we just transplanted these 6 days ago, I would say the root depth can't be no more than 6 inches, 7 inches deep. I mean, we planted them in the ground about 5 inches deep. So I would say this one's mostly because of transplant shock. Let's go over and check that basil, see what it says. So here we are at the purple basil. You can see some of the leaves, they're limp. In this here bright, deep south sunshine. Let's see what the moisture meter says for moisture. At a 6-inch depth, it's right at the top of the scale of wet. And if you look at the ground, you can see how dark it is. It's moist. But here again, we'll take it down all the way to the base. Now when we take it down to the base of the meter, it's showing right in the middle of the dry scale. That's at a depth of 6 to 12 inches. Now here again, I know I set this plant in about 5 inches deep. And I do know from looking at it, when it's in the shade, the leaves do come back. So it also is probably suffering from a little bit of transplant shock and being able to absorb enough moisture from the soil to offset what it's transpiring out in this here bright sunlight and the heat. It's currently 96 degrees. And I'll keep an eye on it and check it this evening, see how it's doing. But as these plants grow, this basil is going to put down roots to 2 foot. And at 1 foot depth, the meter's showing me we're dry. So I will definitely have to do some deep watering in this bed, and that's where this meter comes in really handy. Now, if you don't know how deep your roots go in to the ground, which 40 some odd years ago I didn't. But I had a very nice cooperative extension agent. He came around my farm about once a week on his rounds, check and see how we were doing, if we had any questions. And on one particular week he took a walk around with me. I was concerned because I had irrigation. I was watering in late afternoon, early evenings. I turn on the irrigation for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, which is quite a lot of water with the irrigation. And my crops were still having a problem wilting. So he asked me some basic questions. One is, how deep are your roots? Do you know? I had to be honest, I didn't know. Never came up before. He asked me how I checked the soil moisture, and I stuck out my finger. He sort of chuckled. He said, well, that used to be the way, but there's a new way. And that's when he went to his truck and got his moisture meter. Now, like I say, this is 40 years ago. They weren't small like this. They were a box about 6 inches wide and about a foot long. And they had a probe on them. All his meter did was check moisture, anywhere from about 12 to 16 inches long. And he also got out some paperwork. It was actually a chart similar to this one from the University of California, except it was from the Cooperative Extension Service. And we went over to my beans. And here on this chart it even shows you green beans and dry beans. Depth in feet for your roots is 2 foot. Now that is mature plants. And mine were mature. So he took out his moisture meter probe, stuck it down in the soil about 4 inches, 5 inches where I could get my finger down to, and said, yeah, showing it's pretty moist at that level. But the surprising part of it was as he pushed that probe on into the soil to a depth of 10, 12 inches, it was showing that the soil was fairly dry. When he bottomed it out at 16, it showed the soil was very dry, which was surprising to me since I irrigated at least every other day, sometimes, depending on the weather and the heat, every day. But the point he was trying to make was, I thought I was doing something great when all the time all I was doing was shallow watering. And as we all know, shallow watering will also cause your plants, whether they be tomato plants, cucumber, beans, cantaloupe, whatever, to grow shallow roots. They don't put down deep roots. And he explained that to me. Then he went over the chart he had, similar to this one that I'm showing you. And he went through each of my crops and told me at, maturity, how far the roots would go down into the soil. Just like here, tomatoes, 2 to 4 feet. Bush berries, 3 to 5 feet. That was a total surprise to me. So, he gave me a copy. Actually, it was laminated. I think I still have it on my desk somewhere, or in it. And from that point forward, at least I had the knowledge of how deep the roots would go. I only need to get me one of those meters. And I did buy one. And I think I still have it, though it no longer works. It's probably up in the attic of the shop. And from that point on, I used the moisture meter to decide when and how much to irrigate. And that made a night and day difference on my farm. I mean, first of all, I was the only one market farming, or back then they called it truck farming, in that area of southern Tennessee. Hell, as far as I know, in most Tennessee at the time. Most people did conventional crops, monoculture. Corn was a big one, sweet potatoes, southern peas, similar to black eye, purple hull peas and that, and hay and some grains. That was about it. There wasn't a whole lot of vegetable production at the time. But I was a crazy young man, back to the land. It's my first farm, and that's exactly what I was doing. And I was struggling. But having him stop by that day, talking to me, asking questions, and checking my soil moisture levels would make all the difference from that day on for the entirety of my farming experience. I would use the meter. I would check after a rainfall to see if I needed the water. After I irrigated, I'd let things soak overnight and check again to see if I needed to irrigate again that evening. My crop yields went out the roof. See, I already pretty much knew what to do for my fertilizer. I was always adding down manures, compost, leaf matter, and I always had my soil tested. I had that one down pat. The one I was missing was keeping adequate moisture to the plants during the different growing stages. Now here, like in this raised bed, I know these plants were just planted 6 days ago. I know how deep I planted them. That was bottom of their root balls about 5 inches down. So right at the moment, it's moist enough. But as the roots deepen into the soil, as you can see from the meter, from 6 inches down to 12 inches, it was showing dry. So that's telling me I'm going to have to irrigate this bed more often as these plants mature. And I will be laying in soaker hose. And when I turn that on and how long I leave it on will be judged by this. And I'll keep my fingers in my pocket. But let's go check some other areas that we have different vegetables growing and see how they check out. So now we're walking up here to the clothesline pole bed. And you might notice it's all been freshly mulched. And this mulch, it's my grass clippings. I've been using grass for mulch for about 40 years too. Works just fine. And what the mulch is doing, of course, it's conserving soil moisture. But also, it keeps the temperature of the soil down. I mean, I'm out here now covered with sweat doing nothing but walking around. Plants are just like you. They feel the heat just like you do. But when the roots start feeling the heat, that's when productivity is going to drop off. That's when the plant's going to start wilting more and possibly die. But we came up here to check soil moisture because we were irrigating this last night. And you might be able to see it in there. We've got a soaker hose and it runs around these tomatoes up through the beans and cucumbers. So let me set up this meter and we'll be back. Okay, now this ground's a little bit harder, so I can only get that meter in about 8 inches. Now I had this soaker hose on for an hour last night. And at the time that I put the soaker on it, the needle on this moisture meter was reading dead at the bottom, totally dry. But you can see now here, and that was around 6:30 last night. So after about 12 hours, I mean, we're still better than we were, but it's still showing just at the end of the dry scale. So tonight, again, I will turn this on somewhere around 6 o'clock. This time I'll leave it on for 2 hours. to really give these tomatoes, cucumbers, and beans a thorough and deep watering. And that's the point I'm trying to make. First of all, if you don't know when to water, people either tend to do one of two things. They either overwater or they underwater. And I see a lot of underwatering going on all over the internet. You just can't stand by your plants for 10, 15 seconds, a minute or two, and give them a thorough enough watering. And then, if you don't know, how could you know? You think you're doing a great thing. You know, I've seen people in their gardens think they're doing great, watering every day. Plants shrivel up and die in this heat. And the one reason for that is deep soil moisture. You gotta have it. Just here in this clothesline planting, I've got tomatoes. They're 2 to 4 foot root depth. I've got cucumbers. They're 2 to 4 feet. And we got beans. And beans are 2 feet in root depth. So I kept soaker hose on this for an hour yesterday evening, and I'm sure the soil moisture was higher at that time, but now it's back low again. So if I want to keep growing tomatoes in this plot, if I want to keep growing tomatoes, beans, and cucumbers in this planting, I'm going to have to do a little bit better job of watering. We're going to go down here and check another stand of beans that we also watered last night and see what the reading is on that. So we're over here at the Cobra green beans, and this also was watered by a soaker hose last night. It's not such a big area, so we only kept it on about 30 minutes. Let's see what the meter is telling us. Hope you can see that. But it's just at the top of the moist range and the wet range where they both meet. So for right now, this is plenty good enough. So I probably will not water this tonight. I'll skip a day and I'll water it tomorrow. So I hope all of y'all learned something today. I didn't know a lot of this back when I went from family gardening to commercial farming. I learned it the hard way. My crops got in trouble. I thought I was doing a great thing, had irrigation. I was turning it on for a period of time, almost every day. But I could still see my crops were struggling. And my cooperative extension agent came by. He normally did a weekly round, and on this one particular week he came by and asked me, like he always did, you got any questions? And one of them was about irrigation and watering. And so he took a walk with me around the farm, and I showed him, I was market farming vegetables, which was quite unusual back in the day in this particular area. In fact, I was the only one, and everybody thought I was crazy. So he checked the soil level with his finger, and he told me, well, using my finger, your soil's nice and moist, but I've got something in the truck that'll tell us exactly what it is deep in the soil. And indeed, he went and got, it was about 1 foot square box, and it was a soil moisture meter. And it had a probe on it, about 12, 16 inches long. And we would stop at various points along the crop rows, and he'd insert that probe, look at the meter, and then he'd show me. And at this particular time, most of my plants were mature, like beans. They already had put roots down 2 foot deep. The finger showed we were good at 4 inches, but the moisture meter at 8, 10, and 12 inches down showed dead bone dry. Same way my cornfields, my melon patches, tomato field, what have you. And what he had to say was, you know, Tom, I drive by every day, I see you irrigating in the early evenings. How long do you do it for? Well, I told him I did it for about 30 minutes. He said, well, as you can see, that's inadequate. And I could see it. And I went ahead and purchased me a moisture meter too. And from that point forward, that's how I have checked my soil moisture. And because of that one thing right there, I've been able to grow a garden in the heat of the summer in the Deep South. When everybody else in my area, their gardens are already dead to dying. They're pretty much wrapped up for the year. And they are around here around first week or two of June, or July, excuse me. But people drive by, even though I don't have that much planted at the moment, and they slow down a little bit. Because this fool is still gardening when theirs is dead and dried up. So I hope you'll think about getting you a moisture meter. And I will put a link in the description for this chart. But a lot of the ag universities, different states, they produce the same information, same charts. Your cooperative extension agent has the same charts. It doesn't matter which one you get. I would recommend you get one and become familiar with how deep your roots of your particular plants go into the soil. And that's one last thing I'd like to bring up for closing. A lot of people talk bad about the Cooperative Extension Service. You know, they're funded by the GMO seed manufacturers, chemical companies. And there is some truth to that. But they do have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and have done a lot of studies that you too, whether you're growing organically or conventionally, can use to make a better garden. So friends and family, that's it for now. And we'll be seeing you on the next video. Till then, I want each and every one of y'all to take care, stay safe, and God bless. Goodbye for now.